Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
I can't help but look around and feel like things are getting out of hand. We've been told to trust the science, but the science just doesn't make sense. They say it isn't mandatory, but they also say your jab or your job. But if it doesn't stop the spread, it makes it feel like this is just a facade. What about the healthcare workers? What about the frontline nurses? How quickly we forget that they were working 18 hours a day. What about informed consent? What about due diligence? It seems a country that I used to call home is surely slipping away. I can't help but look around and feel like minds are slowly starting to change. Cause even if you're triple vaccinated, know that segregation isn't the way. Freedom is a choice and it's available to all if we choose. But first things first, you gotta turn off the news. Yo, what about the healthcare workers? What about the frontline nurses? How quickly we forget that they were working 18 hours a day. What about informed consent? What about due diligence? It seems the country that I used to call home is surely slipping away. If you're late to the party, there's plenty room at the table. This side don't discriminate. I'm calling on every single man, woman, child if they're able. It's time to take the streets and liberate. But please don't be a part of the problem, staying willfully ignorant, cause there's just way too much at stake. Yo, it's okay to change your mind, you can admit you were wrong, cause where there's perfect love, there ain't no shame. Heavenly Father, show me what I don't understand yet. I got my marching orders, I don't fully know the plan yet. Hold on to my Bible before bed, no it ain't banned yet. Did you know the makers of the vaccine make the Xanax? I would never lean on corporations for morality, cause they put their profits over people for their salaries. Know they wanna make you bend the knee for your normality. I know you feeling all alone, but in reality, there's way more of us than them. 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 That's the truth. There's way more of us than them. There's way more of us than them. There's way more of us. There's way more of us than them.
Wow, who's that handsome man?
Happy New Year, my friend.
You as well. Welcome to the Rebel News live stream, everybody. YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Super U. We'll pull away from YouTube. Once things get too YouTube spicy, we'll have lots of stories for you today from around the world, including our BFF, Miles Cheong, was deplatformed by PayPal. Late to the party, Ian. Get with it. That happened to us last year, I believe. Who even knows what year it is anymore? How are you, Matt Brevner?
Doing very well. Yeah, it's a snowy winter wonderland on the West Coast. I'm not really used to it, but it's quite beautiful today. Cold, but beautiful. Yeah, how are you doing out there, Andrew?
I'm doing well. There's a non-winter wonderland on, I forget which highway, possibly in Virginia, is it? They're snowed in. They've been there for over 24 hours, reminding me of the floods that happened the last time we were on together in BC, where writer, marketing guru Alex was stuck out there as well. So lots of terrible weather going around the continent is what I wanted to mention. Before we get to Ian Miles Cheong, we have some sound advice. Now, the president of El Salvador, he's been on Tucker Carlson. I think he thinks of himself as somewhat of a cool guy. He calls himself the CEO of El Salvador. He's got like a Bitcoin city. It's just different what he's promoting in a country as small as El Salvador compared to much larger countries with more resources. And we just wanted to play the video and then we'll talk about it after. Let's go ahead and show that President of El Salvador.
Mantener un estilo de vida saludable también ayuda a reducir las complicaciones por COVID-19. Los grupos con más riesgo de mortalidad son los adultos mayores y las personas con obesidad, hipertensión, diabetes y enfermedades crónicas. Por eso pon en práctica estas recomendaciones. Aliméntate saludablemente con una dieta balanceada para acercarte a tu peso ideal. Haz actividades al aire libre. Así respiras aire fresco y recibes algo de sol, lo que tu cuerpo necesita para producir vitamina D. Toma por lo menos 2 litros de agua al día para mantener tus riñones saludables. Reduce el estrés dedicándote tiempo a ti mismo, por ejemplo, haciendo yoga o leyendo un libro. Trata de dormir no menos de 6 horas al día. Incluye cítricos en tu dieta, como limones, naranjas o mandarinas. Evita el consumo de bebidas alcohólicas, alimentos altos en azúcar o en grasas saturadas. Hoy más que nunca, debemos cuidarnos entre todos. Mantente saludable. Gobierno de El Salvador.
If that aired here, Matt Brevner, it'd be called body shaming. It'd be called conspiratorial. I don't know. What do you think about that commercial?
Patty Hyde fake news.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. It seems like sound advice from a government to its citizens, whether we're in a pandemic or not. I don't really understand. It's like basic tips for taking care of yourself. Drink 2 liters of water. Make sure you're getting sun. Make sure you read. But somehow when we're in the worst health crisis of our lifetimes, you shouldn't take basic care of yourself. I don't get it. But I mean, it seems very reasonable. El Salvador seems like an awesome place. I'd love to visit.
It's like elementary school level of health care advice. And I don't know about El Salvador. This guy came in and it's kind of like obviously MS-13, big problem there. Lots of immigration from there to the United States. He probably just figured, let's try some new things because whatever happening wasn't working. Like you see the background there, Bitcoin City. I'm not sure what that means, but he calls himself the CEO.
Well, I know that they've been liquidating a lot of their assets and switching away from like a fiat central bank system into like a Bitcoin economy, which it's a big gamble. A lot of economists are either saying he's absolutely insane or it's going to be the most brilliant move ever. But I mean, fiat currency around the world right now is being hyperinflated. So even like a 4 to 10% inflation is insane over a year, but Bitcoin fluctuates that much sometimes daily. So, I mean, it's a gamble. We'll see what happens.
For sure, and I'd be interested to know if they are part of the central banking network. Of course, that's been conspiracy, I feel like, for 20-plus years, going back to, remember the movie Zeitgeist, where they prophesized single monetary system for North America. The Amero is what they talked about back then, and talked about how basically the central banking system is what controls the world, and anybody who resists it magically ends up being in a war or having some sort of destabilization factor coming into the... So I'd be interested to hear about more from El Salvador. President of El Salvador, come on my show maybe. Last night, something broke of Miles Cheong. He was banned from PayPal. Of course, they didn't really give him a reason, so we want to bring him in, producer, if we can, and get him to explain it more. Last year, PayPal deplatformed us without reason overnight. Never gave real explanation. Yep. Ian, thanks for joining us. Can you give us first
absolutely
everything you've been told by them, what happened, and then we can maybe speculate a little?
Yeah, sure. So I got an email from them yesterday and informing me that I was permanently limited. Right, permanently limited is the term they use for a ban. Now, at first I thought, this had to be some sort of trick, like a phishing email. But no, I checked my my PayPal account and it said exactly what it said in the email. And so I called them up. There's a way to actually call PayPal nowadays. You go through their support system. I talked to some low-level guy. He didn't really seem to understand what was going on. Like he was asking me questions, and like he was talking to some guy in the back. He said, hold on for like 5 minutes. I'll check your account, et cetera, et cetera. Comes back to me, asks me a bunch of questions. and about my PayPal activity, whatever that means. And I'm like, which activity in particular? He's like, all of it. Okay. So I'm like, well, I'm a journalist. I get paid sometimes on PayPal. Sometimes I put my PayPal link out on Twitter. I don't solicit donations necessarily. It's not like I'm live streaming. To my understanding, that actually does violate it. If you're like, you go on a Twitch and then you start begging for PayPal tips, that's not okay. But I've never done that. So I couldn't really think of anything. So I was like, hey, can I speak to a supervisor? And he's like, yeah, we'll call you back in 24 hours. So, but he actually called me back in about an hour, and it was another guy. And I could tell he was an American because the guy I got at first was, he had like a Singaporean sort of accent. I'm in Asia, but this other guy was American, and he seemed, he had this vibe about him, like he was just waiting to chew me out or waiting to just dehumanize me. You could feel it in his voice, like he was silent, waiting for me to say something to explain myself. And I'm like, okay, are you gonna say something? I said to him, and it's like, no, I'm just waiting for you. Like he would be super terse, like when you are talking to someone you really don't like and you're like in their face and you have power over them and you can, just be a real mean, spiteful prick. Yeah, that's how he was acting to me. So, I tried to get answers out of him. I was like, hey, why was I banned exactly? And he's like, so you're a journalist, and journalists, you don't believe in disclosing sources. Well, here at PayPal, we don't believe in disclosing our methods. It just like giving me a lecture on being a journalist. That is just rich, especially since they're a financial organization. I mean, I wouldn't get this kind of response from a bank. A bank would actually offer me a proper response. So PayPal is not a bank, right? It's literally a business where they apparently can do anything they want. So I questioned him some more, and I said, so what did I do exactly? He says, oh, like he was like so eager to be a fucking, sorry, I can't say that here, right? Yeah, be a jerk. Yeah, be a real tool bag to me. And so I said, is it about my politics? And he made this sound like he was like confirming it, like like that, like that kind of sound. And then he, shortly after, he paused, and then he said, PayPal officially, on all matters of politics, PayPal is officially neutral.
Of course.
And I was like, oh, so thank you for confirming that I was in fact banned for my politics. Have a nice day. So I hung up. I should have had a call of that, but man, I was like almost shaking, right? If I wasn't, like a stable person, if I didn't know that, if I depended on PayPal, like this would actually bother me. But what bothered me the most is his attitude. Like he didn't have to be like that. He could have been, said, PayPal can't explain to you why we're banning you, but these are our terms and services. I hope you understand. He could have been really nice. All it takes is a few extra words, but he was smug. He was smug. He was like, huh, yes, no. And by the way, he corrected me twice. When I pointed out I was suspended, because, I use the word suspension and banning interchangeably, thanks to Twitter. He said, brief correction, you're not suspended, you're banned permanently. He said it like that. It's like, okay.
Well, obviously, this hurt Rebel News when it happened. It's not everything, just like it's not for you. You have Substack, Still Gray on there, and of course you write for many websites. And so This isn't going to kill you, as you said, but what's your alternative to this? And obviously this has happened to many people with PayPal now, Patreon. There's so many places. I remember, I think it was Chase Bank, if I'm not mistaken, was denying accounts to people in the United States. Do you see this as a larger trend? I mean, it happened to us. You're very internationally known. Do you think this is going to shine more light on the problem? And what's the alternative?
Well, I hope so, right? Since posting it, a bunch of people have reached out to me. A bunch of Second Amendment YouTube channels say that they got banned. They had, unlike me, I only had, maybe a few $dozen in my PayPal account, so I don't care if I lose that. But a lot of these guys, I mean, they lost thousands of dollars. Some of it's still in, I wouldn't say litigation, but PayPal's just deciding what they want to do with it. And I do see this as a an effort that's ramping up, where they will clamp down on people for any number of reasons, mostly political, because they can. And And one thing that was pointed out to me in the email, and this is not something that I think most people, they don't read the fine print. Apparently, PayPal doesn't let you remove your existing credit cards or bank accounts from PayPal itself after you get banned. And they say that they retain the right, without even asking me, without even asking for permission, retain the right to withdraw as much money as they want from my bank account or for my credit cards to pay for damages that are at the moment, without billing me. So and there's no way to dispute it. PayPal's a scam. It's basically a scam. So I talked to my bank, and my bank people, they treat me really well. They told me, we will cancel your credit cards immediately and send you new ones, because this is, PayPal does this sort of thing. It really does lock people's bank accounts and their credit cards in with their PayPal accounts, and basically, runs roughshod on them. So yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, most real banks don't mess around like that. My bank has always treated me well. Of course, we've run into the RBC thing now, which is a big issue. And I want to ask you, isn't it weird that people are willing to, shun and push away money in terms of politics? Or do they think that, I think that this guy maybe thinks he's being a helpful activist to his side, whatever side that may be. Do you think it's weird that people are willing to turn away money? YouTube obviously does that. Or do you think they're actually doing this because they think, we're silencing Ian Miles Cheong in some way and this is furthering our cause?
I think that there is a much larger policy at the company itself. I don't think this is the actions of any individual working at PayPal or any other organization. I think that this is a system-wide issue that we see in places, in any platform, really. I mean, it all has to come from the top down, right? This is not something that happens on the bottom up. It happens on the top down. So with Twitch, YouTube, different platforms, basically banning people for their opinions, political speech. We've seen this recently on Facebook and Twitter, the banning of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, didn't happen because, some moderator didn't like her. This was, came from the top down. This is a policy-wide decision. And it's the same thing here on PayPal. We see this happening. And, you asked me earlier what I thought the solution was to this. Well, my answer to that would be, simple. It's decentralized finance, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Polygon or something in between. There's a ton of these different services that are popping up right now. If anything, the whole, deplatforming people and, for their political beliefs just shows how much we need a decentralized internet. We need a sort of Web3 that is based on blockchain protocols, as opposed to this whole centralized system that we have right now, where a few companies, say Google and PayPal, when it comes to transactions, have a kind of they don't really have a monopoly per se, but they have a very, very large segment of the market that they've captured, and there's just no way out of it, right? And if you want to use the internet, you have to not be banned from these services. In particular, like social media. If you're a journalist or you're a writer without, say, a Facebook account, how do you promote your books? Well, it's impossible. And so, a decentralized future is the only way to save the internet, because the alternative is them, just a small group of small political ideology running everything else. And I don't think anyone wants to live in a world like that. Even the people who are presently supporting it, who think, oh, these guys are on my side. Well, they won't be for long. I mean, all they have to do is step out of line, say something different, and they'll be in the gulag with the rest of us.
Matt, you want to say anything about this?
Well, I don't think it matters much to PayPal if they're cutting off business for political ideologies or religious ideologies they don't agree with, especially if they could seize assets. A friend of mine is a street preacher in Vancouver. He had over $50,000 seized. It was non-for-profit, all from his ministry, because he was getting flags, and his money's still in internal litigation with PayPal. So who knows if that'll be released. So I'm not sure. If they can just do that, go around seizing accounts for people that they don't agree with politically or for religious reasons or otherwise, there isn't really much incentive for them to stop doing it. So it's unfortunate. I agree that the only way forward is decentralization. We were actually chit-chatting about this last night on Twitter before I saw that you had actually made a tweet about it, Ian. And it really is the only way. It's unfortunate. It's the internet is entering its bloated, inflated hair metal phase, and where corporate interests overshadow the artistic integrity and the original intention of all of it. And I think a revolution is imminent. That's my opinion on it. But
All right, well, Ian, thank you for joining us. I'm gonna have to go cancel my PayPal account after this.
yeah, me too.
Well, not enough people. Like, it's a time where we're all telling people to actually stand up and do things. So I think it's the right thing to do. I don't have a whole lot of money in PayPal either, but I can use something else. I'm sure there's some sort of service that takes less of a percentage for doing nothing that PayPal does, especially if they're saying that we have connections to your bank so we can take as much money out as we want. You know, that reminded me of like a multi-channel network when I was on like a full-time YouTuber. They're just like, oh, we can't give you that money. Sorry, you've been demonetized. We're just going to have to keep that. So there's places that won't do that to you. And you guys can, of course, catch Ian on Twitter, Still Gray, and everywhere else, Substack, and, of course, Rebel News. Any final words on this, Ian, before we, move to El Salvador?
Yeah, don't use PayPal. Stand up for your beliefs and stand up for other creators, other people that you see, this happening to, because right now it may not be happening to you, but you will, this will happen to you eventually. It all comes at us eventually.
There's that saying, they came for so-and-so and I didn't stand up. Eventually it comes to you. Thanks a lot, Ian. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
I always like talking to Big Chong.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ian. All right, I think it's time to get off YouTube. We're in the spirit of getting off of PayPal now. Matt's taking off his jacket, I think.
It's about to get real in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to get off YouTube. It's too censorious, of course. Catch us on Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey. You can always go to rebelnews.com/livestream to find the most appropriate link of the day. The one, sometimes they're choppy on some other places. And you can, of course, send us paid chats if you want us to read them on air. I will read at least one in a moment. Odyssey, Hyper Chats, I believe it's called. Super U, paid chat. Rumble rants on rumble.com. Rumble, of course, making big moves lately. Dave Rubin, locals, all that jazz. Annalisa, 1964, says, hey guys, how's my sweet Menzies doing? I'm not sure. He's, I think he's fine. I don't know. I haven't heard any news that he's not fine. I don't. Matt, do you have updates on David Menzies?
I'm on the West Coast, so I'm the last to hear about what's happening in Toronto.
List. David Menzies has this thing, not on purpose, where I think he doesn't save numbers in his phone. So every so often I'll get a text that says, hey, Lincoln, or hey, Efron. And I'm just like, it's not that person. Or, and the other guys, it happens to them too. David Menzies, start saving numbers in your phone, please. But we're going to move away now from the YouTube. Can't talk about policies for vaccines, vaccine effectiveness, election results. What else can't you talk about? Probably not love. Probably can't talk about my music video, really, that we opened the segment with. That's true, and that's been. Do we want to talk about that at all in terms of the censorship on that before we go, so YouTube can see?
Maybe